I'm Lee. I'm the owner of Supportive Guide, and I am going to have you introduce yourself.
I'm Tammy, and who am I? I'm an entrepreneur, and I've worked for corporate America in executive positions, and I've run my own business. So I've had a lot of experience with both sides of that.
And so today we're going to talk about the good and bad of management, both being under management and being in a management position. So you said you have some stories to share about that. Me being in a leader, I've been influenced by both bad and good management on how I want to lead others.
Yes, I agree. I've worked for plenty of leaders that have shown me what I would never do. But I think it's hard because even as when you're a director in corporate America or executive or a manager of a division, it really doesn't matter if the person above you, whoever that is, whether it be the owner of the company, the CEO, whoever it is, you're subject to their ideas, behaviors, how they handle people, who they trust, who they don't trust, what you have the authority to do and what you don't have the authority to do. And my experience, that's why I like being self-employed and I've liked being in small businesses, is because in corporate America, it's very confusing for a lot of people because they could work at the company for many, many years and be part of the foundation, part of the building up of that company, like really be established there. And then the company sells to a hedge fund, or the company gets a new CFO, and that person just starts making changes. And that's what's happened to me in corporate America is, I was a director of a full division that I helped build for 7 years. And then a new CFO came in, and they literally worked for 2 years to dismantle my job because they don't want any one person to have any kind of leverage or control over them just being able to replace your position.
I find it so frustrating and almost heartbreaking when I do build up a really good team, but you are restricted either by management above you or like company partnerships that are really telling you this is what we need to do, and you're stuck in the middle too. And you know these changes are coming, and you know it's going to be really hard for the staff below you, and you're trying to support them, but you actually have no room to support them.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've experienced too. And in the beginning, when I first had worked for this company and it was a small business, it was just me and the owner would go back and forth, and he would listen to me. I would tell him, like, we really need to give this person a raise because they've taken on A, B, and C, and they've added so much to their plate, and they're such an asset to us. And I would talk to him and just really be able to advocate for my team and give them raises that were, at least some kind of incentive or comparison to the amount that they had grown or taken on or added to their plate. But once he sold to a corporation, that was no longer a conversation. It was, this is the standard we've set and we will do it. And once you get an annual review, then it'll be set at the 3% if you get approved for your 3%. And it just wasn't fair to all the people that had taken on so much more work. And then also because it was a small business, they really didn't have like set positions, right? So the people that helped build the company had been the, dishwasher, bottle washer, whatever they say they do. They had done every job and worked themselves up to really being an asset and value to the company. But because corporate just looked at it like, oh, that person's an AP person, they do accounts payable, or that person just does AR. That's all they seen them for. Like, even for me, I helped build the business and they just see me as an accountant, so they can replace me with any accountant. But I was the IT person. I was the super user on our software. I set the entire processes up. I created all their forms and processes and websites and FAQs, and, really built it all out to what they had. But in a corporate viewpoint that weren't there going through that process, they just was, oh, well, we can just hire another accountant and we can pay them half of what we pay her. And then we put the money in our pocket.
And it's ridiculous that at 3% it's considered a raise. That's not a cost of living adjustment. That is a raise. And in this economy, that doesn't cover even cost of living nowadays.
No, and even
So the
in my
fact that
experience.
corporate sets that, like, I, in my experience, the larger a company is, the less likely there's going to be a huge increase in raises. The money is being stretched between everybody. So they keep it really tight versus actually making it based off performance and added responsibilities.
Well, and being the accounting director and in the leadership with the ownership from day one, it just disgusted me to see how the whole focus was about the bottom line, the EBITDA, the EBITDA, the EBITDA. You know, everybody's about the EBITDA, and that's all they ever focused on was they had to add so many accounts and keep our pay low and keep us short staffed so that they continue to grow or hit the profit margins they were looking for. And that's what they spent all of their time on instead of caring about the people, caring about the clients, you know, and the stuff that we had built the company on didn't matter anymore. And I just, when that started, I just from day one with this, I said, this is not for me. I can't do this because I care too much about people and I care too much about what I do that I can't join them in that mind frame at all.
So when it was a small company versus corporate, I'm sure you saw the shift where, like, when you invest in your employees, they show up more than 100%. Not because you're asking them to, but because it's an actual team and they want to help you succeed. But once it's corporate and they're looking at it like, okay, we have to cut the hours or we have to cut the staff, and because we need to make sure we have more profits, they're looking more about profits than they are people. They actually end up losing profits in a lot of ways because people are less productive.
Oh, 100%. And they don't see it because I just don't understand it. Like the mind frame is anybody can fill any seat. And I disagree. I know that that's not the case because somebody that worked alongside of me for 3 years learned a lot in that 3 years. That's going to take them more time without them having me there teaching them to fill that position. But it comes down to like, do they really care about the quality? No, because once it looks like a well-oiled machine, they think it's just a well-oiled machine that you can plug a person into and they sit at a computer and push papers and push numbers, you know, and I can't understand it, but I lived in it and it's very toxic because it devalues every person that works there. Like if you can't even get a bonus or a raise that you were promised or that you got in the past with the same company, then it makes people feel like they have no value and it turns toxic. And then for me, also it surprised me because I had 10 accountants under me and I never got to that, like in a corporate environment, to a director's position like that, to where I had so many people under me. We had 25 managers that I helped mentor and supervise and just everything to do with their jobs. We had 9 support staff and 10 accountants. So I had all of these people that I was, you know, constantly mentoring, counseling, helping, doing budgets for them and teaching them how to do the financials or understand the financials and just constant wheel of all those people. And I cared about all of those people. But then I had to see from the leadership's perspective that the management company was, you know, adding hundreds of thousands of dollars to their bottom line, but none of that was being distributed to the people and more was just being dumped on the people. And I think one of the hardest parts for me when I got to that level is that the people under me were backstabbing, even though I had been the one that had fought, even when we first went to corporate, to get their raises for them. And I had done a lot of things in the first couple of years that corporate really didn't like me because that leverage that I had with the people and with the system and with just the business. And even those women that I went and battled for them to get the $5,000 raise and the $10,000 raise because I showed corporate how much that they had learned and taken on in the time they were with me, they were backstabbing and like turning against me. And
Do you
it's just
feel
like
that that
everybody
came
was.
from, like, the shift was toxic? Like, the shift became so toxic and people were just fighting for those jobs and those positions that it wasn't about the team anymore, it was about that survival and not caring about each other. Do you think that like shifted that way?
Yes, and one girl in particular that I really trusted, and she was like my right hand for the first couple of years. She started going behind my back with my boss and trying to say things to like twist things around. And it just shocked me so much. But she acted one way in my face and then turned around. And even other employees came to me and they were like, "What is Jenna doing? Like, does she think that she can get your job? What does she think that she can take your job?" And she even came to me and I try to, talk. I'm very open, like communication's everything. So I try to talk to her about it. She's like, "I know I don't know what you know, Tammy. I can't. I'm not an accountant. I don't do what you do. I can't do what you do. I can only do what you've taught me." So it just really didn't make sense. But it was almost like, I think, in that environment, my boss, who was the owner that then was working for corporate but sold to this corporate, his way of thinking that he kept control was to always have spies telling on each other, right? And so it was his backhanded ways that made people think that that was okay and they should always be throwing each other under the bus. And that somehow made him feel empowered that he was still in control of everybody. But um, so that's why I was stuck in between this person that I really enjoyed working with for the first few years, helping build the business, and all the employees and clients and everything we had added. We had 60 communities when I started. We had 230 when I left. So we grew that much in clients and employees over those years, turned into this like person that I didn't even know, because it was like, as he plugged into corporate, it was like he was more brainwashed into that way of thinking, and that he was king, and people were disposable. And maybe he was always like that, but I didn't see it until he got more and more and more like plugged into how corporate wanted things to be done.
Right, and there could be there's other pressures that we may not see when it comes up to even higher up in the corporate. Sounds like it was a toxic environment that was not supportive to their leaders. And you can't be a supportive leader without actually having a supportive leader above you too. You're constantly in this battle between trying to support the staff and not getting any support. That's got to be exhausting.
Yeah. And so that's why I just thought, when you brought that up, like, to share, how I just always want to, and I walked away from a six-figure income and left. I was just done with it, because I would rather have peace and be able to sleep at night and not be all stressed out than to have money. And as a self-employed person, it's taken me a while. Like, I had to restart, and I'm starting over with my own business and everything. But I sleep a lot better. I'm not physically like stressed out and all tightened up and worked up and worried. And like, I was carrying the burden of that business on my shoulders every single day, and I was making good money, but I wasn't making anything compared to them. They were going out and having a good time and leaving me with, all of the responsibility. And so I think that's, what happens that's not fair, is that even when you build up to be, the only way that you can ever really enjoy the fruit of your labor is by being the owner. And that's been my experience. Now, I do believe that I've seen good companies, like I've seen credit unions that my friends work for. I've seen, several other companies that their owners care about the people, and they really care about the culture, and they don't just do quarterly events to act like they want to have a culture, right? But they really, if they genuinely stay where they care about the development of the people and what the people's needs are. Like, another management company I worked for before this, it was run by a husband and wife and their son, and they had been doing it 35 years. And they were amazing. They were very stable. They were very involved every single day. They respected every person there. Um, they actually, I just started working for them in July. I got diagnosed with cancer in October, and I had just gone on to their benefits. I got grandfathered into their benefits because they had been with Kaiser for so long that it wasn't even a plan that was still available. So I went through a whole year of treatment for cancer just 6 months into working there, and they never missed a paycheck for me. I went to chemo every Wednesday. Um, like they just loved and cared about. And I remember when I went in to tell the wife about like my diagnosis of cancer, she was just like, "We're here for you and we'll support you whatever you need, Tammy." And what we learned a long time ago, she said, is that people have lives and people have things that they're going to have to deal with in life. And if we support them, then they're going to be with us for the long term. And so I really have experienced both examples, but any good that I have experienced has been more of a smaller business or a family business that stayed plugged in and involved in who their people were.
That is a really good point there. Like when you are invested in your people, yes, they have lives, things come up, they still show up. They're not giving up on you. Like the most burnout I've experienced is when I am really, really sick and I'm forced to come in. Like I once had a boss where I had a 104-degree fever and she's like, I go, I don't feel comfortable driving. I'm not coming to work. She's like, I'll pick you up. Like, what? No. Um, that did not want me to stay at all. Like, I don't under and that was a small business. So even then, there's some toxic bosses out there. And what surprised me as I'm making some of these videos is I have some comments. They're mostly from males, I'm assuming are more corporate style, for commenting saying, if anyone asks questions of me, I wouldn't hire them. It's like they should not know how we support staff. And I'm like, if you don't want to hire me, then good riddance. Like I don't want to work for you. If that's the reason why you don't hire me, then obviously you don't care about staff.
Yeah, so you're saving yourself a whole lot of trouble if they don't hire you if you ask those questions.
Right.
But I think
Exactly.
it is a gosh, it's hard to keep gender out of it, but I've seen both men and women in those positions that um they don't that it just depends on who they are, right? And here's the thing is like if you have emotionally immature leadership, then it's always going to be unknown on what you're dealing with. Because if they're very dominant, and I'll be honest myself as a hiring boss, I use the personality tests. And if I knew that that person was going to be in a position that required them to be more, just agreeable with the team that they were with, I would look at, I wouldn't want to hire the person that on that personality test that scored very dominant, because if you're trying to put them into a team and they've got to work very closely with 5 or 6 people and there's already a supervisor in that team, you could potentially be dealing with somebody that is going to come in and disrupt the good flow that you already have because they're going to want to take over if they're very dominant. You know what I mean? So I use those personality tests to just try to protect my team and make sure I was finding somebody that fit into that, but not to discriminate against them and not to go, well, I'm the boss and you better not ask me any questions and you better not challenge me in any way. I always supported people to, I learned from people asking me questions. Like I would have group meetings with our what we called community coordinators. They were just really the people on the phones handling the homeowners directly, and the managers and the accounting team. And I would get them all in the conference room and I'd want to brainstorm with them because I'm not doing their job all day, every day. I can't do every job all day, every day. So when we talk through things and I'm teaching them things like talking through in our system or just new stuff that came out in the software I wanted everybody to know about, or a scenario we had dealt with and I fixed something, I would talk through those things and I would learn from the community coordinators that they had problems that they were dealing with that I wasn't aware of. So I think it's important to be inclusive of everybody, no matter the level of their job, because when you put all of their brains together, you can make the whole company better. But I don't, I've ran into a lot of leadership that don't, And I think I could be wrong, but I'm guessing that it goes back to emotional immaturity. That's been my experience. Is if they can't handle being in the room with people that may have better ideas than them, but they've been put in this position of leadership, and that's really why I had my own boss, my own business for many years, is because even when I was younger, I was very like, just get in and take charge and be a leader. And that just came natural to me. And women were intimidated by it a lot of times that were my bosses, usually not men. They weren't, but women were. So they wouldn't like that about me. It would be like I ran into several women that would think that I was trying to make them look bad just by being who I am. I work hard.
I think
I care about what I do. I'm not trying to make you look bad. That's just who I am. But they take it like that when
I
they're
think part
emotionally
of that
immature.
I think part of that is how we've socialized the work culture in a lot of ways. Like ha- we women and people in minority groups have not been in charge in the workforce for very long, or they still don't have that huge representation. So we're finding this balance and we're shifting right now. We're shifting how we treat these people of minorities. We're shifting people who haven't been in power. And people don't know. I think there's this uncertainty of I don't know what's going to happen next because it is changing and people are afraid of change.
Oh, 100%, all the time. And I'm just used to change. I think most of the time change is good. Like, especially I love utilizing technology to streamline things and make the processes better, and just to make our jobs easier by using technology. When I started doing taxes in the early 90s, I had to get everything and fill out the state books by pencil and paper. If I was going to do a state tax return, I couldn't file it electronically or do it in the computer. I had to order that book to be mailed to me, do it all with pencil and paper, read the whole book to figure out what they qualified for in each state, because people moved to Florida from every state. So I would get those every year. And now I can click of a button. Like, I'm going to use technology, but still educate myself about it. But a lot of times people are stuck, even when they have the new technology. And I am currently dealing with this. My new partner, has a management company in Mississippi. So I have come in and I first started doing consulting for them back last year. And then we created a partnership to where we opened up a Florida and Alabama office. But I still do a lot of work for their Mississippi office, which they have 69 communities and about 25 employees. And one of the main accounting lit girls that I work with there, she will not use the system that now they've been on for almost 2 years, that I've helped them with. I've walked her through the way that it makes it easier for her, because she's just so used to the way she reconciles the bank, the way that she knows how to just go and add an invoice, where you can scan 50 invoices, upload a batch, and it's do, 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 do. It's a lot faster. She will not utilize that feature because I guess it makes her uncomfortable to change from the way she's already been doing it and knowing how to do it, regardless of what system she's in.
I'm familiar with that too, because when I worked for a world where we had to build a state, and the state was very strict about what we could bill, and we switched to doing paper documentation to computer documentation. And since I was
Mhm.
the one who was actually creating the computer documentation system, I discovered that we were decreasing the amount of administrative time we were taking outside of billable hours. But in that process, you got to train people into a whole new system they may not be familiar with. And I had one staff member who, she was a little bit older, and she admitted that to me. She's like, "I'm older, I don't know computers that much." So she found a supporting company that helps senior citizens with computers, called them, and we were all on the phone together just to help figure it out because it had a better friendly way of describing things, I guess. And she had a very I don't know how to describe it, but literally there's a company out there that helps people transition. And I'm like, good for you. You were struggling for months and you found a resource to help you. And I loved that. She really did not want to change, but then she's like, I just don't get it. She found a resource. And sometimes we can't be that resource for the people who change because we don't necessarily know how that person's thinking and how their process is. So whenever I went into trying to change a process, I try to create different training tools at any different level, whether it's a paper manual you are reading one by one and following it through, or if it's on the computer where I'm sitting next to you, or there's a video. Like when you do go through those changes, you have to be able to add multiple layers of different training devices to help everybody. But it can be a huge process and you can still lose people because of that too.
Well, yeah, and I did too. I made a lot of videos, and then I try to, like I said, bring everybody in the room together when I was trying to teach something new. But um, people learn in different ways, like you said. So I never really knew who got it and who didn't get it until I seen their work. Then I would say, oh, okay, yeah, they got it and they ran with it. And some people, you just show them once and they're off to the races, and they'll come back if they don't remember and look at their notes. Cause I always tell them, when I'm walking through it, make notes. And I've seen, honestly, a lot of the younger girls, millennial, between 20s and 30s, that I trained were better at going back to their notes and rechecking what they had written down themselves to try to do it themselves first before they came to me and said, I'm stuck, I can't do this. Um, and so I think that's a really valuable tool when they write it down themselves. But then I would also make videos for them to go back and watch over. And I'll even do that honestly, because the software that we use is constantly changing. And so, and I've maybe only done this process in the system, you know, 3 months ago or 4 months ago, so it's not something I do every day. I'll go back and watch that training video and maybe even just get it to the point where I'm like, I don't remember this piece of it. And then I'm like, okay, I got it. And so those I definitely videos are really valuable tools, and notes and any kind of written information, as long as the person is willing to go back and look at it themselves and try to figure it out until they get it.
Next time on Conversation Spotlight, we dive deep in conversation talking about caring for your staff. So make sure you subscribe and like so you don't miss out on the next episode.